Chapter 79, Dropping the Veil. Gojo touched Geto lightly on the shoulder to wake him up. He loved that Geto was finally sharing his bed, going straight to him at bedtime, the other bed in the room all but forgotten. Geto stirred but didn't wake. Gojo rubbed his hand against his shoulder. Geto shifted a little. Then he turned to look at Gojo. I'd love to stay in bed with you all day, but it'll piss Yaga off. Gojo smiled, brushing Geto's hair out of his face. Okay, I'm getting up, Geto said reluctantly. When he pulled the covers away, Gojo noticed the bruises on his arms. He gently reached for him, but Geto scampered out of bed. I'm fine, they don't hurt, Geto said, rushing to the bathroom. Gojo didn't have anything to say. He wanted to keep the marks that Geto left on him, to prove that he was still human enough to feel pain, to feel anything at all. The difference was, Gojo could heal himself. Geto would stay marked. He hoped the long sleeves of their winter uniforms would conceal the black and blue bruises, unmistakably in the shapes of fingers. Gojo, Geto, and Yaga stood in the middle of the dimly lit training chamber. Yaga went over the instructions again as Gojo shifted the chest of sealed curses around. Same as last time, Geto. Identify the curses using resonance, not your vision or cursed energy. You're not here to feel their pain, only their presence. Identify the feeling, then let it go. Remember to let it go, Yaga emphasized. Geto nodded and bent down to sit cross-legged on the tatami mats. Gojo and Yaga stood a few feet behind him to unseal and release the curses. Gojo let the first curse go. It was a small, trembling mass with oversized, weeping eyes. It covered its face with long, stringy hands. Geto reached out, detecting static in the air. He reached further, trying to determine the shape of the thing. The feeling of it wasn't coming in clear. It's small, shaking. Geto reached out a little too much, his consciousness invading the curse enough to flood his senses with overwhelming pity and fear. The curse reacted with a wail, and Gojo quickly grabbed it in his hands to subdue and reseal it. Geto, Yaga warned. I know, I reached out too far. Geto shook his head. He took a deep breath and put his hands back on his knees. Are we ready to move on? Yaga asked. Yes, Geto said, closing his eyes. Gojo released the next curse. The seal noted this one as the glass tooth curse, manifested from anxiety about appearance and perfectionism, found in the dressing room of a local theater that was being renovated. Geto held back a little, worried about triggering another curse. He reached out, slowly, until he felt the sharp and brittle edges. It gave the impression of chattering teeth and cracking bones. He was relieved when he identified it correctly, identifying its sharp, emotional pain. When the third curse was released, it levitated into the air, a decayed, oversized moth with a human face. Dust fell from its wings. Geto frowned. What was this? It's flying, but heavy, smothering. Yaga didn't confirm his answer. It's heavy because of guilt and grief. Geto brushed the curse just enough to feel it, but not take it in. Good, Yaga said. He took parchment out of his pocket to lock the chest of curses again. And that's it for the day. When can we do away with this veil? Gojo asked. Yaga finished his incantation and looked at Gojo. I'll approve it, but you'll both have to start reporting to class from now on. And you're going to face a lot of scrutiny from your classmates. Geto walked up and stood behind Gojo. The students will want to know something, even if we keep the details about Geto under wraps. If anyone asks, you tell them it's rehabilitation under supervision. Leave it at that. And if Geto has another energy lapse, Infinity stays off. He has to ground himself without you acting as a crutch. That's part of his recovery. Yaga looked between the both of them. There's still a lot more retraining to do before we let Geto out into the field with you. The sessions from here on out will be more intense. The higher-ups are watching you like hawks. I get it, Gojo confirmed. Geto stayed silent and walked to the edge of the mat to slip his shoes back on. Gojo held out his hand and Geto grabbed it, ready this time, in case he was pulled in too hard like before, but Gojo didn't pull that trick again. Yaga walked by, lugging the chest, noticing the marks on Geto's wrists as his sleeves slid back. I don't know what other training you've been doing, but you should have Shoko take a look. He left the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing down the hall. Gojo walked out with Geto. Do you want to stop by Shoko's office? Gojo asked quietly, touching his fingers lightly across Geto's hand. Geto pulled his hand away. No, these are mine. He brushed his shoulder against Gojo as he turned to follow Yaga. Gojo watched him shuffle away before he caught up. He was glad to finally step out from under the veil. But as Geto's sleeve pulled up, revealing the bruises, Gojo knew the real trial hadn't even started. They wouldn't just be seen, they'd be judged.